episode 231, Feng Shui Chi Forecast for July 2023. Welcome to episode 231 of the Holistic Spaces podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and empower you to create your own holistic spaces that nurture and resonate with you. Angie Cho and Laura Morris are the founders of the Mindful Design Feng Shui School. We teach Feng Shui online at mindfuldesignschool.com. Check us out. Be sure to sign up for our mailing list for special free workshops and opportunities that are only available to our newsletter subscribers. You can go to the show notes and opt in there, or you can visit mindfuldesignschool.com and check out what we have. So we're doing our monthly Chi forecast. I was just telling Laura how over the years doing this podcast, we've had like different people offer like a astrology forecast, and Laura and I were so like kind of resistant to doing it ourselves, and then we just decided we would, and we were getting a lot of feedback that our Chi forecasts are one of the most popular podcasts or episodes that we offer. So we're really glad that it's working out and you're enjoying it, and we also really enjoy it too. So if you like it, be sure to leave a review or say something, because all that stuff actually really helps support us. Like, we do this to support our business, and we also offer the podcast to give something free to the general public and offer some free, like lots of freebies, and it also markets our business. But if you ever want to give offer some Chi back to us for balance, we would love it if you could put a review up or share the podcast. You know, your little things, really, your little energetic efforts really help and support us, and we feel it, right, Laura?
Yes, I agree.
I wonder if this will tie into July.
Not with my reading, but good try.
Oh,
Well,
like,
I
no.
mean, not with what I pulled. It's interesting though what I pulled, so it'll be
Okay, we'll see
yeah.
how it goes.
Mhm.
Okay, so this month Laura is going to offer her tarot card reading.
I am.
So
Yeah.
before, but Laura
But first,
starts
yep,
with
I set the scene. We get
Mhm.
into the key dates, the solar term and the moon cycle. And this month we have the solar terms, two solar terms. The first one, July 7th, is slight or minor heat. And we're getting into July here. It's coming, it's here. So we all know what that means. In the northern hemisphere, it means hot weather. And we just passed through the summer solstice, and now we're really, so when you tip into the beginning, we had the beginning of summer, then it moved in the summer solstice, and now we're in the getting to, with this solar term, not quite because it's the next one, to the peak. And so this is the real scorching heat of summer that's beginning. Thunderstorms, big thunderstorms, hot, humid in many climates. And then July 22nd is the second solar term of the month, and that is great heat. So this is, for all of us, the height of summer, really. I mean, it's the scorcher. It's, when we are the energy is at its peak of yang. And it is the 12th of 24 solar terms in the traditional Chinese calendar and the solar calendar, which means it's the midway point of the solar terms. So it's summertime, people. It's coming, and it's going to peak around July. From the solar term perspective, it peaks July 22nd. We also have a full moon this month, as July 3rd is the buck moon. And it is also referred to as thunder moon. And the buck moon has to do with deer, male deers, the buck, the antlers. They get to their full grown at this point in the year. And then this is when they shed them, and then they grow back even bigger the following year. So it is big summer, big fire chi. And we'll talk a little bit about the energy of the month, the chi of the month, a little bit more. But before, Angie, what's going on Chinese zodiac wise this month?
So for July is related to the zodiac animal of the ram. So that would mean that if you were born in the year of the horse or the year of the rabbit and the pig, July is typically a month that is supportive of you because horse has one of the best relationships. It's a BFF of the ram. And the ram is also in harmony with rabbit and pig. So if you're born in the year of the horse, rabbit, or pig, July is typically a supportive month for you. And similar to June, the rat and the ox have a challenging relationship to both the horse and the ram. So those born in rat and ox, typically in June and July, you need to like take care of yourself. That just means take things extra slow, practice more self-care, and to do things that support you. So like Laura is born in the year of the rat. So I
Mhm.
think in June and July, have you noticed that that's something that you need to kind of take care of yourself to not get burnt out?
Yeah, a little bit, and it's really interesting because the reading that I did was has a lot to do with that, like the
Mm.
finding balance. And so July, I mean, I like summertime like a lot of people, but I it's that a lot of that fire chi is sometimes tough for me. Yeah,
Yeah, because elemental connection is to the water
it
element.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the chi of July.
Yeah, so the chi of July, so with all of that coming together, and I always say this, when I do these is what is happening where you are in your climate. If you are in the southern hemisphere, it's going to be very different for you guys. Obviously, you're experiencing the winter, but here for us in the northern hemisphere, those listeners that have similar summer times, or maybe you have really, really dry or really, really humid. It's different, even within that northern hemisphere, there's quite a range. And so I like to think about what happens where I am, and I'm in rural-ish, agricultural, I would say, agrarian part of Canada, out northeast of Toronto. And I live in there's a lot of rural, energy around, so it's pretty natural. And I get, and actually, it's really interesting. And I didn't know this until I started talking about friends that live where I live. Fireflies come out around the beginning of July, and that's like my favorite. I just can't. They're so magical, and they're just the most amazing things. And I can walk into my backyard, and it is like I don't even know how many are. It's like sparkle. It's like twinkle lights have been strung all the way across the backyard. And but then I'm in town. I'm in town in a country, in a small town. I go talk to other people and they don't have any, and they're only a few kilometers away. Sorry, a few miles away. And so I started actually looking at thinking about fireflies. And so now I'm actually nurturing how you like bring them into your yard. I did not know. They take quite a long time to gestate and to kind of come to so that when they sparkle, and it's like you have to have like lots of dead material, like like a composting, and not to like rake up too many of your leaves, and to have like, bush certain, different little things. So I've been working on that and cultivating it. Anyway, all that to say that it's my favorite. And it is also hot and sunny and humid because we are experiencing the peak of fire chi, right? And so when we think about that in a feng shui perspective, you could think about it as that peak of everything is visible. Things are coming to light, right? Things are being lit like little fireflies, but a whole bunch of fireflies are lit up, and they're because like fireflies would be like little baby yin fire chi, but this is peak summer, big fire yang, summer. And we were just saying this, so don't burn yourself out. It is hot. And especially if you're somebody that's a little bit more watery, or, metal y, it might be a little bit more, it might be a little tougher for you, a little bit. But when I do, this kind of brings me into the tarot reading that I did. because it kind of comes full circle a little bit. So as you guys have been listening to this for a little while know, we alternate, we toggle back and forth. 1 month Angie does an I Ching reading, and 1 month I do a tarot card reading. So it's my turn this month. And I usually ask the question, what do Holistic Spaces podcast listener need to know to navigate the energy of July? But today I said, it just came to me when I was working I had the deck out. How can we find peace and balance and be okay with what comes up this month? So I just was like, and that is what I said. And I pull 2 cards, right? So I pull a major arcana to give you the overall theme. And then I pull a minor arcana that kind of gives you the action that requires to connect with it. And so when I pulled the major arcana card, I pulled temperance, which is literally, it's, figuratively, symbolically, balance, all about balance. It's also a fire card, right? And it is, for those of you that aren't familiar with the card, what it looks like is it has a they, them, because it is, Waite actually described it neither female nor male. Sort of angelic feature, although there's some debate on whether or not it's a goddess or, or some other kind of being, but angelic looking, standing with 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land, and having 2 cups, pouring water from 1 cup into another. And very, very, very calm face on the they, them, on this angelic type figure. And this 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on the ground is about balance. It's about finding balance between both sides of yourself. So, I asked the question how to find peace and balance, and it's almost like this card, validated it and says, yes, you do need to focus on finding balance because stuff will come up this month. And I know personally, I think a lot of it too is a lot of my own personal stuff is coming through. It's, it's because I'm a holistic podcast community person. So, I'm also plugging my own chi into these readings. And so the water part is, that finding that balance is with the foot in the water is the intuitive yin side, the earth being on the ground is the material or yang side. So earth is the material and water is the intuitive emotional part, a lot of emotion as well. And so it's about in order to seek peace and balance when you encounter some difficulty or something that comes up this month, that you need to try to seek calm and equanimity by diluting your own emotion by balancing things out. So the fact that the angelic figure is pouring water from 1 cup into another is like they're tempering something. So sometimes some believe it was water to wine or whatever, but it's whatever it is, one liquid is going into the cup into another liquid, and therefore diluting it, tempering it, and balancing it out. So it's about finding this internal balance, being, yes, you're going to get emotional. Okay. And that's the water. And you're going to be like, oh, I feel this. And I know this to be true because I feel it. But this card challenges you to step back and to also put your foot on the ground and say, wait, what's actually coming up for me, and be practical about it. So temperance has a lot to do with, after an upheaval, right? What do you need to do to find balance? And so this was really speaking to me. This is a lot of, there's not a lot of stuff, but things come up. And so when these upheavals come, how do you seek balance and come back to it and be comfortable with what comes up? And so then you pull the second card, and the second card I then asked before I pulled that second card from the major arcana, because I split the deck right into major and minor. So from the minor arcana, when I pulled it from the minor arcana for the action, and what I said is, okay, how will we get there into the prior question? So it's like part B of the question. And I pulled the 8 of Cups. which is a very interesting card. It has a figure, it has the cups in the foreground and all standing and stacked. So that's good. There's some, they're not tipped over everywhere, but they're standing up. There's one missing in the way that it's set up. It looks like there's one missing, which is interesting. And when you look through that gap of the one missing, it's a person walking up through into the mountains, into the distance, up through a pathway. And there is a moon in eclipse. Okay. So it's a very watery card. So the temperance was a fire card. This is a water card. There's a lot of emotion in it. So it's an emotional situation, probably. So you have to the 8 of Cups tells you essentially walk away from what is not working. There's something missing, that missing cup. And that when you look at the card, through that missing gap is that person and that seeking, that journey of self-discovery. So you need to do some thinking, some pondering, and you need to realize that it's time to move on and wake up. And you need to think about what do you need to walk away from. And so if you circle back to the reference to temperance, what do you need to let go of in order to find balance? So are you being too emotional? Instead of being too emotional, maybe you could instead of tapping into the emotional part of water, maybe instead tap into the intuitive and inner wisdom seeking part of water. So, and the 8 of Cups also has that eclipse of the moon. And that eclipse of the moon is symbolic of what you're not seeing, right? Something is being obscured, right? And so what can you do to sort of tap into your yin side to see what you're not seeing? So overall, the 2 cards are connected. One is fire, one is water, which is really interesting. But the fire card still has a lot of water in it, and it's a lot of tempering all that emotion. And so when a situation comes up, how do you seek calm and equanimity about it? You find balance by staying grounded, by putting one foot on the ground, and then maybe also shifting that perspective of that raw emotion into something that's a little bit more inner wisdom. Like if you're going to go, seek it on a deeper level and intuitive and tap into that instead. So that is what I pulled. And then, we can talk a little bit overall. Angie and I, we do this where I'll say a little bit and then we kind of go back and forth on this. But I would say, Angie, just to take it a bit further, we can work with this energy because it's the fire and water card. We're in a fire time right now, right? And it's about finding balance, which we always say, because that's what Feng Shui is about. It's about finding harmony and balance. It's not about, oh, fire is really good because I'll be seen, so I should pile a whole bunch of fire on and fire. And that's not what Feng Shui is about. It's all about trying to keep things as balanced as possible, as harmonious as possible. And so it's looking, well, because the season is so fiery, maybe you need to temper that temperance. You need to bring in some temper. You need to pour some water on it, right? Dilute it. But maybe you don't, because maybe you're one of these people that's so watery or cold, or you just so need this. You really need that. And so it actually almost brings you back up to balance, like if you were looking at like in terms of like, I don't know, a variable, like, it brings you up to where you should be anyway.
It's similar to our chi reading last month, actually, where it was again this balance of water and fire. So it's interesting that that the listeners are getting this 2 months in a row. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, because I see like a tendency with people in general believing that if they put their emotions out there and they put their hearts on their sleeve, like, and the heart is fire, right?
Yeah.
That somehow that's healing for them. And sometimes it isn't that way, right? And maybe there's a suggestion here for the listeners to kind of reconsider, like, what does that mean to share my emotions? And is that appropriate? Is it actually really healing me, or is it exacerbating it? Is it just, like, in a sense, like re-emphasizing,
Mhm.
re-experiencing the trauma, re-experiencing the and over highlighting the difficulty instead of looking to actually really heal it and take responsibility for it. So I think there's a lot of that happening sometimes, um and sometimes just sharing, like, for instance, sharing something really personal on something very public like social media
Mhm.
doesn't often really result in growth, if I'm going to be
Mhm.
honest, I think, or healing for someone. But it just kind of like re-emphasizes it and makes it bigger.
Yeah, if that's all you are doing, if that is the way, because so for when you talk about emotions, when you talk about fire and water, there's two. They are opposing elements, but we don't want you guys to get, we like we said this before, like don't get too tied up on that. But they are opposing, and when you talk about emotions, fire, as Angie said, it's like your heart is on your sleeve, and when fire is out of balance, personal chi wise, there's inappropriate displays of emotion, right?
Mm,
So
yeah.
you aren't reacting the right way to situations. And it's interesting because if you think about fire in the traditional Chinese medicine sense, the emotion attached to it is joy, right? But that sounds fantastic, doesn't it? But you can joy, 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 joy. Like it's like you live out loud like all the time. And it's like too much, too much. And so there's a lot of like, and then there's, you always want things to be joyful and then there's, or you're just seeking this, always kind of opening and seeking validation and love and all the, so that's when it becomes a little out of balance. And then the other side of that coin is water, the emotional, and water is emotional as well, but it's really cautious and hidden and dark, and it can get a little like fearful and quiet and kind of really inner, right, and not showing anything, which is not healthy either. And that's when it, but when those are both, when both elements are are balanced and you're feeling comfortable, you're able to, like, you know be emotional or be cautious when you need to. So it's sort of interesting. So if you find that you're one person that does have their heart on the sleeve and you are like this fire energy that you're like living in right now, try to sort of feel a little bit. If you were watery about this, you might be a little bit more cautious, right? A little bit more wise and sort of high, like, maybe just dial it down a little bit because, and see how that feels for you and vice
Well,
versa.
right. So it's kind of like, if we talk about the fireflies that you touched on earlier, um, which I love fireflies. They don't actually have them in California, so I didn't grow up with them. I first saw them when I was in Italy.
Mm, cool.
And I think that firefly, it's like a firefly is very yin fire, and it's very small, like you said, the little Christmas lights, they are very watery in the sense they move around and they show up at night and they bring a lot of delight. So you could be
Hmm.
like a firefly that is
Hmm.
very like delicate and very offering a lot of delight to people. Or you could be like the blazing sun at high noon where everyone just like wants you to kind of go away. So that's kind of like that extreme of sharing, becoming overly emotional, making it all about you, and literally like burning everyone out.
Hmm.
And and positioning yourself like a Leo in the sense, or the sun, where you feel that everything revolves around you.
Hmm.
So how can you kind of take that approach where you can be like a delightful small firefly that rejoices and and shows a lot of joy within the darkness, at night and brings delight versus being overbearing and way too much and again like feeling like everything needs to revolve around you and it's me.
That you are the sun, the soul.
Yeah.
You are the center of the universe, literally.
Yeah, like a Leo,
Like
right?
a Leo.
Like the stereotype of a Leo. And I think this also reminds me of something that I've been talking about a little bit on my platform is that I did a couple of mini consultations. No, sorry, erase that, Jeremiah. I didn't do any mini consultations. I did some podcast interviews, and one was with Laura Chung, and she was talking about how she recently got a cease and desist. Did we talk about this last month?
No.
Oh, okay. A cease and desist, and I guess I immediately asked her like, oh, like what's happening in your fame area of your office and your desk, and she had lots of plants in her fame area and lots of candles in the fame area of her office area. And that's kind of also in a sense a little bit of a like a misconception that people think, oh, more is better, right? Divulging more of your inner child like work to the world is very important, and making it all about me is very important, and being very fiery is very important, but and adding a lot of plants, more candles, more fire, I want to be seen. But then that can backfire. Like for instance, you can receive uh too much visibility, and then that happens. Or like something that happened to me recently is like I finally got hit with one of those like scammer imposters on Instagram. That's and not that I have that much visibility, but it's just like they those scammers kind of succeed by making themselves very visible. They start going they start directly contacting people, talking to people, creating a lot of visibility. So there's a lot to think about there, that sometimes like someone will think, oh, like more is better, but more isn't always better, especially from the Eastern perspective. Like for instance, Qigong, you're not actually supposed to do like a whole bunch of like exercises of Qigong. The instruction is actually to only do what is required and not to do too much, right? Because you used to practice Qigong, right? And
Yep.
they're like, no, you don't put major effort into it, and don't do like 20 times. We should only do it like 5 times. Less is more.
Less is more. Yeah. More is not more. Less is more.
More is not more. Yeah.
Um,
So should we tie this into
yeah, but what you can do
Shui?
from Feng Shui. Yeah.
Okay.
So the Feng Shui you can do to support yourself with having talked about all this stuff that we talked about. I always like to say, start looking at fire and water together as being helpful rather than clashing and bad. If you Google and you're doing Feng Shui 101 and you're doing it and someone says, oh my God, you have this in your fire, blah, blah. Step away from that there's more to it than that. And sometimes it depends, like Angie just said, sometimes, putting more fire is not what you need. So that's a little bit of thinking that you need to go through, and don't be afraid to bring in some water in a fiery situation to balance and to cool yourself down.
Yeah, like people always, a lot of our students say, well, what about having the sink and the stove in the kitchen? It's like, well, you do need a sink and a stove in a kitchen. That's what a kitchen is. And actually, when you add fire to water, or you add fire to you bring fire and water together, they create steam. There can be a lot of amazing transformation and chemistry, and you need both of those things. We need the sunlight to thrive, and we need water to be hydrated. So these are not we challenge our students when we work with them to see beyond those hard and fast rules that people have just kind of plopped onto the internet.
Okay, so some of the ways you could tone down fire would be to tone down your plants. No, trim your plants back, take care of your plants, maybe prune them, maybe give some away, maybe spread some around your home if they're kind of all like in that area of the fame area, start spreading them out. And
Mhm.
plants feed fire, which is why we're saying this. And so, if you have them in a particular fiery area, that can be a very simple one to do.
Or maybe your plants are overgrown, because what happens in
Mhm,
the summer is, if you go out to your garden, you see that everything is lush and everything is overgrown. And then,
mhm,
like, starting the fall, they start to fall down
mhm,
because of their weight, right? But things
mhm,
become very wild, which is great. But if you're feeling that there's, um, actually, no, it's not even that if you're feeling, but if you're listening to this, the invitation is like, maybe take a look at some areas in your life or your garden or your home where there does need some pruning. And then how does that translate to your life as well? Where do you need to trim and prune back some of your
mhm.
own emotions, if we go back to Laura's reading? And then you don't have to you don't have to like do what my dad does and like chop it down so there's nothing left.
Yeah, don't
Um,
forget this is temperance. Don't forget about the
yes.
balance.
Yeah, there's this one tree that like every time I come to visit my dad, we're like, he's gone crazy again with pruning. It's like there's like nothing left, but then it always grows back, right? But you can also give away cuttings. I just did that last weekend. So I went to a friend's birthday party, and I noticed that he had a plant that I had some plants that I had originally given them cuttings of the plant, and then they have like amazing light in their apartment, so the plants like were so robust. So I actually don't have any more of that one of the plants I gave them a cutting of, so I took some cuttings back,
Mm,
or they gave me some cuttings and then I gave them some more cuttings. So sharing trimming and pruning away things that are not that are a little bit out of control in your life, right?
mhm, mhm. And then a few other easy, simple things to do. Drink lots of water, you know?
Yeah, drink lots
Um,
of water, maybe use water to clean more of your parts of your home.
mhm. Yeah, just
And yeah,
try and
and
experience water. We talked about that last month too, is just see if you can, remember to drink water. I mean, I have to remind myself every day, I swear.
yeah, but
Um,
listen to our podcast from June too.
yeah, we talked a lot about how to integrate the water. A couple other quick things. Too many electronics and devices, because those electronics, they represent the fire element.
Yes, they're very fiery.
Mhm,
So I know I can always benefit from having less time with my devices and less time
mhm,
on the computer. And something that's come up for me recently, just intuitively, I was like, I think I need to also balance EMFs, like energy
mhm,
from all the devices with some black crystals, which
mhm,
also bring in the water element. So I've recently just put on like those shungite
mhm.
little thing
Yeah, I have a lot of that shungite. Yeah.
medallions on my
Mhm.
devices, and black is also the color of water. So you can, if you like crystals, you can bring in some shungite or black tourmaline. I recently just ordered some new large crystals, so I'll share them on my feed.
Yeah, cool. So that's
That's
this
July.
month's. Yeah, July. And
Cooling down the fire,
cooling down.
cooling down that imbalance
Mhm.
of emotions, and offering temperance.
Exactly.
Great. Thank you, Laura, for offering your reading this month.
Well, you're welcome.
And thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of the Holistic Spaces podcast. You can tune in every Monday for a new episode. And if you like our podcast and this episode, please share it with others. Subscribe, leave a review. You can always support us by visiting our website, signing up for our mailing list. Go to mindfuldesignschool.com, or you can tap through in the show notes, and leaving things like reviews are so helpful. If you'd like to explore the world of holistic spaces and feng shui on an even deeper level, you can visit holisticspaces.com or mindfuldesignschool.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.